right, you will not believe this. The U.S. Air Force is giving military drones the ability to recognize faces. They are basically going to be putting that same facial recognition technology that you see when you walk inside of Walmart on the scariest and deadliest drones around. This is creepy as hell, and it says that the U.S. Air Force has completed a project to develop facial recognition software for autonomous drones, sparking concerns that individuals could be targeted and perished. It says that the U.S. Air Force can now equip autonomous drones with face recognition technology, raising fears that they could be used to find and take out specified people. So say you are on a wanted list. You have a predator that is not supposed to be monitoring the U.S., but is, randomly just sees somebody that's on that most wanted list, and it drops down and then it takes them out. This is like something out of a Nicolas Cage movie, but apparently it is coming. The drones will be employed by special operations forces and intelligence gathering for missions in foreign countries. Now, that's the key thing. They're not supposed to do this kind of stuff here. But what do you want to bet? They probably will. It says, according to a contract between the Department of Defense and Seattle-based firm Real Networks, which is really creepy. By the way, Real Networks used to be like the real, their offices were down by the piers. They did like the early internet stuff with like whatever that stupid thing that you could watch, different codecs on. And now they do all sorts of really, really funky stuff, along with all of the other Seattle companies that are helping these creepy AI and tech-based weapons. It says, based on machine learning, is designed to work on a drone that is piloting itself with limited or no operation at all. Very, very creepy. We'll talk about this and much, much more. We'll talk about how Poland is actually putting anti-tank Normandy D-Day type stuff on their borders as we speak. We actually have the photos and the tweets from their defense official. So we'll be talking about that and much more on today's Marfoogle News. We'll be right back right after this. See you in a second. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Thank you, everybody that has already joined in live. I appreciate everyone that is already here. Thank you so much for also sharing this out on your social networks. First of all, let's get into it. If you are new here, you can find a full bibliography and every single source for all of our show today at marfooglenews.com. Now, when you go there, you'll see it's very easy to navigate. It is all done by thumbnail. You'll just look for today's thumbnail. And then, of course, these are in Poland now, anti-tank. Once you do, you will find there is a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document we're going to show you here today, plus a whole lot more. Once you hit a overflow bar, that is all of the stuff that could not fit into today's show or the stuff that starts bar fights. That is all down there. So make sure to go check it out. It is a lot of work to put this together before every single show and every single short shareable video. So please utilize it. You can also use the search bar. If there is any kind of article that you believe was important over the last couple of years, but you can't quite remember it, search some terms up in the upper right corner. It has all of the articles we've covered over the last few years archived. That way you can find anything. If you want to see a show that we've talked about Bigfoot or UFOs or submarines, You type it in there, and it will find the shows that we have covered it, and it will even give you a bibliography for those shows. So thank you. Again, make sure to utilize that. And then, of course, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com/friends. Let's go over to my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So we have a lot to go over, but I just first want to touch back on, and by the way, this is usually we do a crazy story. There's so many crazy stories today that the entire show, every section has something that is absolutely insane. But last minute, we added this, these predators basically adding the ability to recognize faces. Now, this is something I thought they would have already had, but we're talking about not somebody with an Xbox controller in some sort of, container, operating this thing. This would be autonomous, and then it would be able to also be given a profile if they give it a person. This thing could autonomously just fly around until it finds that person. The second they go out in public, this thing could take them out. What do you think about this, Dex? And this is supposed to be used for foreign countries. Do you think that this will ever be here above us?
Absolutely. Think about this. Think about all the military gear our police forces are buying and using now. We take surplus and we sort of roll it downhill over time. So, there was a time when you're like, oh, the police doesn't have military gear. They don't have, night vision goggles and, automatic, bang bangs and things like that, or Bearcats, right? Now they do. So it's just a matter of time before this technology moves its way from the military to LEO, whether that's federal LEO or local LEO. That's my opinion. This is not shocking to me. Matter of fact, the most shocking thing in here is that it was Real Networks out of Seattle, which, as you were saying, they're the ones that made the Real Player app back in the old days. Yes. We used to try to listen to music online. The first music players, Real Player, one of the first. 95, 96.
If we showed you the old logo, you would instantly know it. Like if you downloaded anything off of Napster, you had to use the Real Player or something like it to play your music. Oh, the days of Napster. What was it? Oh, it's not on. Dang it. Wait, I screwed it up. I don't know. I've been wanting to do that, and that wasn't a good use, but, Anyways. Later, I promise I will use that correctly. But as far as using this, as far as LEO, watch how it's going to be implemented. They're going to say that it's going to be put in place with the law enforcement within the next year or two. They're going to say it will have restricted abilities as far as like, oh, well, we're going to use it in law enforcement, but don't you worry, it's not going to, just find anybody and everybody. Think about this from a law enforcement point of view. They could also use this and then use this technology, at least for the facial recognition, to have, say, police departments, which already have these drones monitoring drug areas. Like in downtown Seattle, there's a place called The Blade where all of the open air stuff happens. There's a neighborhood like this in every, big metropolitan city. It's a strip that even the McDonald's closed down because they were basically having people getting shanked in front of it like every Tuesday or every 2:00 p.m. on every day, I think it was. But anyways, they even closed down, and it was just a horrible strip. Well, they started flying these drones above, and they have a little blue light on them. But this happened there first, but now they're like flying over all of kind of the bad neighborhoods, and you see them just flying around, and you think, oh, it's just somebody, flying their drone. But these things were specific, and they'll always have their mobile base parked nearby. This thing can actually land on the top of their mobile big bus and then park. Think about the facial recognition part of this being put into just their surveillance drones. Then if somebody is on a DOD list or like they're on parole or something, this thing will be flying above. It will automatically catch somebody and it'll go ding, ding, ding. And then all of a sudden a white van will pull up and grab them. That sounds crazy, but that already happens. In fact, the Department of DOJ, I think it is, or Department of Corrections, the DOC has an actual thing that looks like a weapon, and it has a little screen on the back, and they would drive down 3rd Avenue, and it would scan people's faces, and if it saw somebody who was not supposed to be in that area, they would pull up in a white van, and they would snatch them up and say, "You're under arrest, come with us," and put them in, and then they would, break parole or whatever. I literally would wait at the bus stop every day at work, and I had this happen like 2 or 3 times where I'm sitting there waiting for one of the main buses, and all of a sudden a white van would pull up, and a bunch of sheriffs would get out and say, "Come on, you know what you're doing," and they would just like take this person away. That was already, but think about a drone that can autonomously fly around and find all of the criminals. Now, you're probably saying, "Oh, well, I'm not a criminal, so I'm not worried about it." What if you're falsely accused? This is where the gray lines start getting blurred, and it starts getting really bad. So again, it's not bad yet, but just watch. They're going to say, "Oh, limited use, limited ability." And we'll go back to the show and say, "Oh, yep, the Marfoogle family called it." All right, and then we'll talk about this here in a minute. They're placing anti-tank measures in Poland. We have information directly from one of their defense ministers. But first, retired general on Russia-UKR conflict. It would push us much closer to a Cold War to have China actively involved in assisting Russia. That would a true kind of definition of a proxy now. If China is supporting Russia, we're supporting UKR. We're basically in a proxy conflict with China. Dex, do you want to go over this? This is some pretty big comments by a retired general.
Yes, Jack Keane said on Wednesday that if, he's one of the many, there's a lot of people that are speaking out about this right now. And we'll talk a little bit more about the intelligence that may or may not exist around this notion that China is helping with arms to Russia. So if that's the case, he's basically saying it's a pretty slippery slope. It's a very bad thing. If that happens, it's going to change the game, not necessarily the game in UKR, but the game in the global sphere, so to speak, as it relates to tensions and relations between the U.S. and Xi. This is not a good thing. It'll probably immediately put us into what we felt like in the cold conflict, which is what he's referring to. But I actually think it's a little bit more significant than that. We may see, a larger escalation. And by the way, this is on the heels, like this latest thing that we're about to talk about is on the heels of all the other Xi stuff that's been going on, whether it be talking about how, much we need to be better than their military, talking about taking away their chips, talking about, the things that they've done, et cetera. We've had this campaign from our media and from our leadership that's basically painting this awful picture against China, and this just adds to it. So put all this together. The writing is on the wall. This is all about escalation, not de-escalation at the moment.
I still don't think that worked. Well, we'll see, and we'll follow it, and we'll make sure to keep you guys updated as far as what else is going on here. And then it says the Pentagon's vague threat to China over arming Russia. So they've said a whole lot of kind of puff, but it said China is employing a well-trod tactic to try to outmaneuver the U.S. as it appears more ready than ever to start helping Russia gain new ground in UKR with weapons shipments. The Pentagon on Wednesday pledged consequences for Beijing if it heeds Moscow's desperate pleas for arms and ammunition, but yet again stopped short of detailing how it would follow through on the stern but vague threat. Spokeswoman Sabrina Singh delivered the cagey response during a press conference, and it says, "I don't want to forecast any of those consequences," she said. It says, and of course, repeatedly, people asked, what are those consequences? What are they? What are they? It said, it isn't the first shadowy warning. In an interview that aired Sunday on CBS News, Secretary of State Antony Blinken referred to, quote, a serious problem if China looked to strengthen its alliance with Russia at this time. This is a bad B movie. Everybody can see this where this is going. Obviously, they have, it's been super obvious since negative 4 day, negative 4 months before. China and Russia said that they're no limits partners. They said no matter what happens, they're going to back each other up. What do people think that means? It says, but analysts who study Chinese military tactics suggest that the targeted ambiguity serves a larger purpose. What the vagueness of the U.S. threats is likely to attempt to preempt Beijing's well-trod tactics of confounding Western restriction. I don't think China's afraid of doing something to help Russia. That's little on the scale of things they could do. It says once you get into what China can or cannot provide, the Chinese can always come up with ways to circumvent a specific list, and the Chinese can be very creative, says Yun Sun, director of China program at the Stimson Center think tank. A broad statement covers all bases. And that's exactly what we hear all the time. We hear these super broad and super vague statements. What really happens behind closed doors is they do these tit-for-tat things like we'll have a cyber hack, but they say, oh, it was a glitch in the system, or all of a sudden the whole stock market will shut down and they'll go, oh, it's just another glitch. Or a plane will fall out of the sky and they're like, oh, don't worry, those guys weren't headed there, type of thing. But of course, these could be attacks. They could be many different kinds of things, or they could be ops by three-letter agencies. It says the standoff has taken a new urgency with China's Wang Yi, the most senior foreign policy official in the Communist Party, traveling to Moscow for meetings with Russian President Vlad this week, ahead of a reported visit by President Xi Jinping in the spring. So not only is Xi going to be visiting soon, but also one of the guys is going in first very, very soon. So they're working out things. This is only a matter of months before this starts spiraling. So this is why we're telling you, get your ducks in a row. This is obvious where this is headed. Very, very obvious. And at the very least, there's going to be events that change our economy. That could be like, that's almost a guaranteed here. And then U.S. may reveal intel on the weapons China may give Russia. One thing I thought about too is if China is giving the newest, most advanced weapons they have, and we are giving the most newest advanced weapons, they actually might be able to test this in a real battlefield scenario where it's like our weapons versus China. Who knows? Maybe this is like a test run for when we actually do go to war with China. It says the U.S. is reportedly considering releasing intelligence on Chinese potential weapons transfer to aid Russia in its war with UKR. But some analysts doubt it would take such a risk. Which analysts? I would love a name, because like who doesn't think they would risk that? They have been just out of control. The United States is considering releasing intelligence on China's potential weapons transfer to aid its ally Russia in the conflict in UKR amid, quote, concerns about the economic and political fallout of a failed Russia. So they have a political investment in Russia for them to succeed. So do you think they're going to let them? I don't know if that will happen, or if they are even failing in the first place. Mainstream media has us all confused. And then U.S. to ramp up troops in Taiwan. Dex, do you want to talk about now we have multiple fronts. There's these slow, subtle movements, and people aren't going to realize that this is slow motion moving towards the inevitable, in my opinion.
Remember when we reported there was somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from 12 up to 30 troops in Taiwan from the U.S. and they were upset about it. They talked about it. They were like, this can't happen. You can't do that. That's, going against, our, one China policy, et cetera. Now we're talking about bringing in 100 to 200 more, definitely. And it's specifically just like those earlier ones. It's for training. But it's still putting troops on the ground there. And this is a much bigger number, going from 10 to 20 to 30 to now 200. That's significant. And this pretty much paves the way to potentially putting more troops there. If we can get it, it seems like if you can just get this in and nothing happens, then they can maybe go to 500. And if nothing happens, then before you know it, they're going to go to 1,000. And at some point, it's going to be the breaking point with Xi for sure.
Well, think about it this way. If they end up putting even 100 there, they could spread out those 100 service members at every base that they have there and every critical location. So if China hits any of those critical locations, it risks taking out a U.S. soldier. I mean, think about that. Even 100 soldiers, if even one soldier per base is just, I don't know, they put out a folding chair and have them suntan. If that base is hit, then that puts them at risk of going at a direct conflict with the U.S. Just a thought. I'm sure that they would at least give them like a lounge chair or something. It wouldn't be foldable. It might be nice, and it might cost $25,000 for the industrial complex to make. But again, I do think that something should be paid attention to here. The largest deployment of American forces there in decades as Washington tries to deter China from a potential attack. And that may be why. As Dex said, they really, really made a huge deal about, it was like at the time 12, and then somebody rumored that there was 30. And then remember that one congressman or somebody said on a tweet, they listed a bunch of countries where troops were, and they said that there were like 20,000 there or something. Do you remember that? Was that Taiwan?
It was speculation that we had lots of troops there, and that was it turned out to be not the case, or at least that's what they told us.
Yeah, that's what they told us. So they can just come out with an official thing going, well, no, that's not the truth. And then everybody's like, gobble, gobble, gobble. Taiwan to send at least 500 troops to U.S. for combat training, report says. So Taiwan plans to send at least 500 soldiers to the United States for training later this year, and it says far more than previously, to strengthen their combat skills amid soaring tensions with Beijing. A joint combined arms battalion with troops mainly from the Army's 333rd Mechanized Infantry Brigade and the 542nd Armor Brigade will travel to the U.S. in the second half of the year, according to Taiwan's semi-official Central News. So this is also a signal we're saying to China, like, we're going to train these guys so they can kick your ass. This is another thing where it's like China would not be happy about this. They want to go and just steamroll the whole country over, but we're going to supposedly start training them. Or at least this sets up the public to believe this. Obviously, this is an excuse. This is a good excuse for China to be pissed off. I mean, if you're training the guys that they're going to go take over to not be taken over, they're going to say that's not support of their one China rule. It says, quote, this marks the first time troops at battalion level, typically consisting of about 500 soldiers, will travel to the U.S. for training rather than a platoon, 25 or 60 troops, or a company, 80 to 150 level as in the past. Taiwan is known to have previously sent military personnel to the U.S. for training, but usually just a few dozen at a time. So some of the more important guys, or, just for kind of, sending them over and learning some specific skills or something like that and bringing it back to train. So the one thing I think of is if they do 500 soldiers and then the next week they send another 500 soldiers, and it's just a constant kind of loop, and they just keep sending them back and forth and training. Dex, as far as them training here, doesn't that put us in kind of the crosshairs of them being pissed off at us?
It certainly does. It if anything, it solidifies the relationship between us and Taiwan, one of which that we've watched our president and his administration go back and forth, as in, well, we'll support him, and oh no, we support the one policy. So they, we've had that back and forth for a long time. I don't know which, sometimes you don't know which side to believe, but bringing these folks in, bringing them in to the U.S. And training them makes a huge shows a huge commitment, or at least obviously an alignment.
Yeah, I know. And if they align any more than this, there's going to be more headlines saying that China is pissed off. I'm sure this will cause its own kind of flurry of things. Catherine Wilson says, God bless all you guys for all you do. Well, thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that, and thank you for being here. And then Liz Smith, Adam, you remind me of Sean from the TV show Psych. I feel like I've watched that. Isn't that the one where he is psychic, or at least he pretends to be? And then Zenzo, 5 ecological scientists just perished. We'll be covering that. And but on a plane to their way to the Ohio site to test. So they say that's not the official narrative, but we'll show you all of the questions people are asking right now. Make sure you're good people. Love you, Marf. Well, thank you. Let's see here. Best mods on YouTube. Love our Foogle fam, Natalie D. Well, thank you. And again, all of the folks that I missed yesterday, Neil Nelson, Zen1AZ, and Samson Grinder, Natalie D, thank you. Let's see here. Wow. And then, by the way, I can't believe that is, hold on here. Wow, you guys, some of you guys were way ahead on some of that stuff. That is awesome. Senzo, great job. You were way ahead of that. All right, and then before we move on, I just want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and check out EMP Shield. This is the same company that, again, is outfitting agencies like DoD and DHS to protect all of their electronic hardware. Make sure to go over and look, because these things can actually protect your cars, your trucks, your vehicles, your boats, your motorcycles, your four-wheelers. They even have the micro for small vehicles and for smaller objects and devices. Again, they have one for the home. You can have a professional wire in, and it will actually protect 250 feet from where it is wired in. So everything plugged in the size of most houses will be protected. That will ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your devices, your car, or anything else that you want to keep running after a CME or an EMP. This can also protect against a Carrington level event, which, by the way, we'll be talking about with Wages World at some point here. Because of the weakening of our electromagnetic field, some are saying that it won't even take a Carrington level event to have a grid down scenario, which is a pretty trippy thing to think about since we're heading into the maximum of solar cycle 25. So if there's something you want to keep running, like your gas-powered generators, or even if you have an Energy Flex 1500, it's actually the only solar generator you can get an EMP Shield for, then I would protect it. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. Not only will you get a $50 discount on each device, but you'll also be helping our channel. You're getting something out of it. You're getting a discount. You're getting something you can keep and actually possibly save your own life with, or get you home or get you out of there. And you're helping independent news at the same time. So thank you guys. Appreciate you. Again, that's marfooglenews.com/EMP. Veteran-owned business, and it's 100% American-made down to the screws. And then the West scrambles for top-secret jamming technology to counter Russia and China. So, mind you, this stuff there was a lot of signs that this was heading this way before, even when we were still in the Middle East, how they were switching over everything to protect against Russia and China. I feel like this is a closer step. There's been a lot of weird drills over the years, drilling without GPS and power and everything else. So I'm glad that they are actually working on stuff like this technology. Western governments are scrambling to invest in top secret jamming technology and secure radio gear to battle Russian and Chinese threats, according to UK defense giant BAE Systems. Chief Executive Charles Woodburn said to the FTSE 100 company he was benefiting from growing interest in tools to wage electronic warfare alongside traditional combat. Says, quote, "We are the world leaders in electronic warfare, and a lot of those programs are classified, but it's areas such as that are getting increased attention and increased funding." So funny enough, nobody knows anything about the stuff that they're doing, but they're getting more funding. So obviously they have to show a cause for this to get that funding. And that's what I think about, is what was said behind closed doors that got all of this insane funding for this. Of course, there's also the military-industrial complex that filters out money to the people on all of these panels and the ever-rotating door of politicians and board members of all of these companies. But again, there's got to be something that they're putting as a front reason why to do it. The U.S. in particular is interested in the technology, BAE said. It came as the company unveiled record orders boosted by demand for arms in the wake of the Russian Vlad UKR invasion. It says jamming enemy signals and disrupting their attempts to corrupt your radio communication is a key area of development for militaries around the world. Investment is increasing as surveillance and the rapid sharing of battlefield intelligence becomes more important in warfare. The effectiveness of rapid intel has been demonstrated in UKR, where both RUT and UKR forces have made use of electronic warfare. They've actually done micro EMPs and all sorts of different things over there already. UKR, and they jammed Russia. Supposedly, we covered this, that Russia used a jamming technology that ended up jamming themselves too. I don't know if you remember that story. So they used something, it did its job, but it did its job so well that they couldn't communicate either. UKR has drones to quickly locate targets such as tanks and artillery, allowing forces to strike them before they move. Russia, meanwhile, has been able to knock out many UKR drones, in part by using electronic attacks. So one thing, too, have you guys seen the thousands of pictures of UKR? Like, cities are just in rubble. I don't, we're sending crazy gear. They're using crazy gear. But I just want a side point. There are more and more pictures of some of the major cities that they say that, Russia's failing in. Even if they're failing in some of those cities are demolished. It's pretty bad. Dex, as far as the electronic warfare devices they're using, what do you think about them? The record number of orders here.
It tells me that there's something going on with our adversaries, that they've advanced at a level that we're having to invest in this. This is something we should have already had. And it is something we've already had. We've already had jamming. We've already had secure communications. So what's new here? Maybe we need something better because what we have isn't working. And that tells us that our adversaries like Xi or even Vlad have greater or have advanced their technology in a way that makes what we have either obsolete or non-effective.
So when you look at all of this, you could look at it, different ways, but looks like obviously there's a lot of money being spent towards this. Carol McLean, thank you for your super stickers. I appreciate that. Thank you for the back-to-back super stickers. Appreciate you. And then Germany and China clash over West's supply of weapons to UKR. It said that the German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock clashed with Chinese diplomats on Thursday, passionately rejecting their claim that the West was adding fuel to the fire by arming UKR. Baerbock said that it was time for China to tell Russia to stop its aggression. In a debate at the UN General Assembly marking the anniversary of the invasion, and as seen as a key barometer of the state of world opinion, China intervened to present itself as above the conflict by proposing a catalog of measures, a ceasefire, dialogue, security guarantees for Russia, protection of civilians, and the upholding of territorial integrity. So we talked about this earlier where they were coming out with this peace plan, right? Dex, as far as this peace plan, do you think all of a sudden this is just going to go away overnight and they're going to do China's peace plan? I doesn't seem like it.
It seems like if they're going to come in with something, it seems like they're coming in to, if they're going to be doing something that nobody's going to like, which is arming or helping and supporting Vlad, then they need to come in also with this notion of, hey, we're here to help. We want a peaceful resolution. So while we may do this bad thing over here on one side, look at the good thing we're doing here. We really want to see, a plan come together. So I think, it's kind of disingenuous that they're doing that, but we'll see. If they come out and that's all they're going to do, and Xi makes his trip to meet with Putin and comes out of that saying, I demanded that they withdraw, I want to push for peace, et cetera, that would be totally different. I'm very suspect that that's going to happen that way. It doesn't make sense given everything that's going on. So at best, they have one hand saying we want peace, and on the other hand, they're backdooring in, weaponry to Russia.
So, yeah, and it says every country, she argued, had a duty to send a clear signal that the conflict was coming to an end, addressing the 30 to 40 countries likely to abstain from the resolution, including China, India, and South Africa. She noted, today, each of us has to make a decision to stand in isolation with the oppressor or stand together for peace. So just want to point out, there's 32 countries in NATO. There's 30 or 40 countries on the other side. Now, they're not all, you can't compare apples to apples or anything, but when people say the whole world is going against Russia, it's quite split, and that's why this is turning into a world war. If you even have 30 countries that are said they would abstain from anything that would basically have a peace in this conflict, that kind of shows that they're not exactly condemning it, right? So this is lining up. And then China calls on U.S. to provide intelligence on Nord. This seems like a real big setup as far as like if it's true or if they don't have the right evidence or whatever else, and something comes out of this. And by the way, a lot of people believe Seymour and his blog and his Pulitzer-winning prize writing on this subject about what happened to the pipes. So it is not a good thing to have this play out like this, because obviously if they did do it, then they would either have to come up with something or they won't be able to provide it, and this is going to escalate things. It says the Chinese Foreign Ministry has called out on the United States to share information about the sabotage on the Nord system, and it says that Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Bin said on Thursday, says, "We hope that the U.S. will be able to provide intelligence about the explosions on the Nord and Nord 2 instead of withholding information." It says on September 27th, 2022, Nord Stream AG reported unprecedented damage which had been inflicted on 3 lines of the Nord pipelines the previous day. Swedish seismologists recorded 2 explosions along with the Nord on September 26, 2022, and November 18th of 2022. The Swedish prosecutor's office said that the blasts along the pipelines were an act of sabotage. The Russian prosecutor general's office opened a criminal case on charges of international terrorism. Think about if we actually, if they say that we're guilty of it by we, the U.S. American investigative journalist Seymour Hersh said in his article published on February 8th that the boom booms were planted under the Vlad's Nord 1 and 2 by U.S. Navy divers with assistance from Norwegian specialists under the guise of ball tops. So, Dex, as far as this goes, like this is, if they are asking for this stuff, and what happens if we don't? If we just say no, then it looks suspicious. If they provide things and it's wrong, I mean, it seems like this is going to play out like this is going to be the catalyst to start a much bigger conflict. This was a huge deal, by the way. They cut the pipe from Russia. Whoever did it from Russia to Germany. And a lot of folks are even questioning if Germany is going to end up, being on a different side here. Dex, what do you think about this?
This is clearly a part of the setup, especially for the UN and the request that is coming, because this is now Xi getting in line with Vlad around this notion that, we need to have the information, you need to provide the intelligence, you need to show everything that's been gathered from this so that we can see it. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because we all know what happened there. We all know somebody did this, and whoever did it doesn't want to be caught. And I still stand by my opinion that I think, and the reason why you see somebody like Seymour still around and still publishing, he published something else on this. He published about the history of Norway dating back to, I want to say Vietnam or something else. I can't remember. It was pretty far back, about alignments that we've done with covert work with them. That was just the other day he published that. The fact that he's still there and he's still doing this just leads me down the opinion that I had that this was probably leaked to him intentionally so that we could have plausible deniability, so that they could provoke this kind of response. They're trying to poke the bear, and they're trying to poke him in a way that the bear has to actually respond. And we're seeing the response of words. We're seeing the response of, council meetings with the UN and whatnot. But what we haven't seen is the retaliation. And that's destined to happen at some point. It's going to hit probably, Norway or somebody. It's going to be a power. It's going to be data lines or something underwater is going to be hit in retaliation. And that is probably what will kick off everything else. Because if that does go down, that will be, especially if it hits a NATO country, that's going to take, this whole conflict into a totally new realm.
And speaking of which, it said that Russia drops ominous warning about attack on a second country. It says that Moldova dismissed claims by Russia's defense ministry on Thursday that UKR saboteurs were prepping a fantastic Freddy. So, by the way, this is another thing that many people were not, and if you weren't following the right, Telegram accounts or Twitter accounts, you probably didn't even hear about this. But it said that they said that UKR saboteurs were prepping a fantastic Freddy on a pro-Vladian breakaway region in the country. The warning, announced on the Russian Defense Ministry's Telegram account, suggested that the troops involved would dress as Vlad's soldiers as a pretext for the invasion. It is planned to stage the alleged offensive of Vlad's troops from the territory of Transnistria, the message warned, referring to the pro-Russian breakaway region of Moldova. To do this, the UKR saboteurs participating in this event will be dressed in the uniform of the military personnel of the armed forces of the Federation. If you want to talk about history repeating itself, realize that every war has had one of these kind of events. Not saying that this is true, but if this is correct, or if this is even close to it, maybe because they put it out there, it won't happen. Maybe it's just completely made up. But this is coming, coming out at a really crazy time. And at the same time this is coming out, you, of course, have Poland, which, again, not Moldova, but Poland is doing this. These are anti-tank measures. I mean, this is straight out of, like, D-Day, Normandy. We think of these things in the battles of World War II and World War I. These are being put up all over. Not to mention in Romania, they're digging trenches. The 101st Airborne Division is there, and people are still asleep on this World War III thing. I don't know what to say. They are putting up anti-tank measures. People think this is all just going to fade away, and it's all just a big circus. I get that there's most definitely some clowns behind it, but this was the translation. We have started a preventive expansion of security measures on the border with Russia and Belarus. This is part of our defense and deterrent strategy. The first fortifications are already being placed on the border with the Kaliningrad Oblast. What's really trippy is just envision down the road, this does end up happening. This now calm area right here very soon could become a battleground. Like, we are living in history right now, and people want to deny that this is going to happen. This is the war that everybody knows is going to happen. It's just like World War II, where everybody knew it was coming. They were just waiting for that big event. Going back to that article, hopefully it's absolutely fake. But you would either need a real event like that or a Fantastic Freddy event like that to get it escalated. And that's what I have been saying for absolutely forever. That's what we're not, I would say, waiting on, but I don't want to see it. Nobody wants to see this. When this all goes down, I think that YouTubers like me are done. We're not going to be able to cover anything. The whole internet might be down. This is something we don't want to see. Cyber is the most likely. And again, with Davos saying 93% of the cyber experts of the world, the finest experts, they're putting out at their meeting, likely in the next 2 years. At the same time, that same year, all of the richest and most elitist people are buying passports, golden passports to other countries as a backup. Like, there's a lot of things that are dots that are easily connectable that aren't like, oh yeah, you're connecting this with that, or because it's on the 23rd of the thing that it's 2 + 3 and this and that. No, this is like solid, big picture stuff that is all coming together. And I hope people are finally listening to us. We told you before CV, we told you what they were preparing for. And if you look at the prep and what they're drilling for, that's most likely because it is the highest probability scenario. And right now, they're physically setting up defenses in Poland. They're physically digging trenches in Romania. They are telling us that Belarus needs them to have some sort of attack on their soil to join it. I mean, like, there's all sorts of things going on. Japan has changed. Now they are an offensive country. They are doing one of the fastest military buildups in the world. This isn't just going to be Rush and UKR. This is going to be China, Taiwan. India is probably going to get involved. South Africa's in this now. Cuba, all of the outliers, Iran, Israel. This is huge. And it's so big that people can't wrap their heads around it. I know that you guys are mostly all getting your prep together, but man, your friends and family, I would highly recommend, trying to tell them just as a responsibility thing, like, hey, you have car insurance for your car. It's not because you know you're going to get in an accident. You do it because you may. Have them think about prep the same way. And then Bulgarian factories and secret task force, how the West hunts for Soviet arms. We're going to talk about this. We're also going to be talking about Russia will be forced to withdraw its troops from UKR, possibly in one area. Czech companies produces inflatable HIMARS. Russia's deployed 350,000 troops. We'll talk about that here in a second. But first, I do want to remind you, if you don't have a backup for power, we have a really great option for you that not only will you get a huge chunk discount on this, but you'll be getting one of the best solar generators on the market and an investment, something that will last decades. The Kodiak X2 is available, and these can be shipped out really, really quick if you do want something sooner than later. But the Energy solar generators run off of solar panels, or you can actually charge them. They have 1,000-watt chargers, so you can actually charge a Kodiak X2 from the wall as long as you still have power on this. You can charge this huge bank in about an hour and 15 minutes, which is insane. It's the same kind of huge power cables that you get that plug in computers and big stuff. That plugs directly into it, and you charge it like that. Other than that, though, you don't need $5 a gallon gas to charge this thing. You need a couple solar panels. Again, you can actually plug in solar panels and get your power from the sun. So as long as the sun rises the next day, even if it's an overcast day, you're still going to be getting power out of it. Go over and check this out. It is an amazing unit. It is built like a truck. It is beautiful with wood grain and, of course, the metal, not plastic. It is a really, really beautiful unit. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy. I highly recommend, if you're looking for something more pro, go for the Flex 1500. This can be modded. It can now even be a UPS system with the rapid charger, which also allows you to change the makeup of it. And it can be expanded up to 96 batteries. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. You can get hundreds of dollars off on it if you end up using that code. So there is a wait for the Flex 1500. Because now lithium, when they get the lithium, they make these and they send them out. It's way better than you can go and get something right this second, but it's most likely manufactured in China or half of the parts, because a lot of these other brands are knockoff brands. I would stick with like a few of the big name brands if you are going to go get something, because the one thing that you're getting an Energy for is its reliability and its ability to run. So again, go to marfooglenews.com/energy. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about the Bulgarian factories and secret task forces, how the West hunts for Soviet arms?
This is kind of humorous in some ways. Unfortunately, you find humor in conflict, but they're using as we all know, UKR was originally part of the USSR. So they have a lot of Russian-made equipment, and they've been using shells and things like that for a lot of their equipment. And as they're running out, they're trying to find more. And they can't just call up Vlad and say, hey, send us some more shells so we can use them against you. So now they're literally going around to any of the prior Cold War countries, for example, Bulgaria, and trying to see if they can scrounge up some ammo so they can still use some of this older equipment that they have and make use of it. So it's just it's something you just wouldn't think in a modern conflict you'd be dealing with. Like, let's find old ammo. You'd think about this like maybe the end of times when everybody has nothing and nobody's making anything, and you're just trying to scrounge through. And if you find stuff you can use, that's literally what they're doing here. So it is a unique situation because of the fact of their past, the equipment they had. and what they use, but they want to keep using it, and they're running low on ammo, so they're trying to find more.
And great comment here. Tobias says, Marf, I was an electronic warfare tech in the military. Electronic warfare is the first wave when we attack. Basically saying the electronic warfare is first. Before anything else, they're going to go in, turn the power off. I mean, like that, actually, even most non-military know that. When they go in, they turn off the lights, they turn off comms, they try to do as much damage to screw the enemy up as far as make them confused. But especially if they're taking like an actual, building or something, they cut the power, they do that. So good point. So you're saying they're investing in electronic warfare because that's going to be the first step of an attack or a defense. And then Adam, I liked your piano playing. Can you do it like Green Shirt Man Zelensky? Stephen McMahon, I don't know. Is he a good piano player? Because I'm not. But no, I probably couldn't do that. I could wear a green shirt at some point. Get it from the Green Shirt Depot, aka Zelensky Inc. And then Carol McLean, thank you for another super sticker. I appreciate that. Very cute. And then Red Pilled, hey, you don't have to do that much. Thank you for the $50 super chat. We are making history in many ways. We were chosen for this time in history. Let's make it count. One thing I would say is the next generation of kids, man. You just keep praying. And then, hey, Marf, Dex, and fam, do you think this war will hit American-Canadian shores? Shirley Baker? I do, and that's not a popular opinion, but just telling you my opinion. I think that there's a reason why all of the gun owners in California were leaked. I think that there's a reason why they're practicing doing port-busting torpedoes on basically ports that look exactly like United States shores. I think there's a reason why China's prepping, hitting carriers out in the desert that look exactly like our carriers. And I think there's a reason for all of the surveillance. But I know, I don't get the thought that people think we're just like untouchable or invincible or something. I understand we have the best military in the world. But if you think about it, there's humans involved, and where there's humans, there's heirs. And where there's infiltration. Think about this. If we were going to send a first strike nuke to China, our top military member was about to call them and give them a heads up. So there's humans involved, and that's why I think we're not untouchable. And there's human error in all of it. Look at how they handled huge debacles like Katrina. It took 4 days to get water into the Superdome. Like, that's insane. There's whole departments dedicated to every little thing. There's a subset preparing for anything. I mean, there's even now, a subset of the plans. They plan for everything. They war game out everything. They simulate everything. They even simulate aliens coming in invading. I mean, that's literally part of training in the military. They have a part of the book, if this happens. But that doesn't make sure that something like that won't happen and that there will be mistakes made. I think if we do go to World War III with China and Russia, that we will have people in our country. And who knows? There could be sleeper cells here already. Think about that. We're a melting pot. We could have all sorts of people that are communicating worldwide with whoever they would, be sleeping for. In fact, there was actual data that said Iranian, that 1 out of every 100 that came over the border was probably a sleeper cell. Like, that's crazy. I guess there's 5 active T cells just in my state. That was according to a military member I spoke to currently on, that were on the base. I was literally trying to take pictures of the huge, crazy earthquake thing in Moclips. He said 5 active cells right here, and they're watching them like constantly. So I think that stuff could happen in our country. I don't know about them rolling up like D-Day, but I wouldn't be surprised by it. I don't think that we're invincible. I do think we are badass, but who knows? And then Russia will be forced to withdraw. Dex, what do you think? She did ask you as well. What do you think that another country would be able to land on the to come to Canadian and U.S. shores?
Well, you mean like one of the big ones, or anybody? I guess you know it's one of those
This
things we've
war.
lived. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things we've lived so long with, and it's never happened that we almost think it's never going to happen. But it's we'd be naive to think that, and I totally agree that if we let our guard down and think that we're untouchable, or because we got the great distance between across the Atlantic or across the Pacific, that saves us, I think that's wrong. And by the way, even if you go back to the second conflict, there were times we were hit. It's not something that's really talked about in history, but we had certain things hit our coastlines and stuff back during those conflicts. So,
And we had ships right off of New York and during World War II. I mean, yeah, they were very close, if not, and then things that happened inside the country. And then Russia will be forced to withdraw its troops from UKR soon, says UKR's spy chief. Dex, what do you think about this? Do you think Ganda or Facta?
well, it's an opinion piece. So, coming from the spy chief, I don't know if how much always take all of the information with a grain of salt. I mean, we got to say that all the time, just because in conflict there is loads of ganda coming out. Depends on which side it's coming from, and no matter what side it's coming from, it's still going to have a spin to it. So definitely something to take into consideration, but at the same time, given the fact that he's been making such a huge investment, he being Vlad, the Putin has been making such an investment in conscripts and bringing in more equipment and more troops to the lines. At some point it's going to end. I mean, so I guess technically he's right. It's the question is how far will it go and what territories will be held on or not. I think that's really what it comes down to. So what do they say? A broken clock is right twice a day. So I guess this guy can be right at some point.
Yep, and I guess, they say it said the Russians had the opportunity to calmly get out of the situation they created. He said, however, they did not want to stop and chose the path of escalation, which creates problems for them, Budanov said. He said he believes that UKR is nearing the end of the conflict. Who knows, though? We could look forward in 3 months from now, and all of a sudden it just drops. And if it did drop, and if just everything was over, everything went back to normal, you absolutely know our community, everybody, all of our peers, everybody would go, okay, what really happened? If maybe there's some shady thing going on that absolutely nobody could even fathom, I would never stop asking questions if that happened. Just like I still haven't stopped asking questions about 2001. People never let that go. People should never let 2019 go. Czech company produces inflatable HIMARS for UKR to fool the Russian military. Dex, can you actually cover this and the next piece? I'm going to have to change chords over here real quick.
Absolutely. So we've talked about these inflatables and the decoys that they've used in different conflicts. Specifically, I think even Putin has had them. We've produced them as well, and lots of coverage of these over the years. Here we are with a company now that is actually making a HIMARS looking inflatable, and so this thing looks in exactly like it from a distance. And as we've talked about in the past, they actually can put in devices that register signals and signatures, if you want to call it that the other equipment that's out there, this goes back to like the electronic conflict, that can make it look like it's real too. Not only does it look visually from a distance that it's real, but also everything that your sensors are picking up are telling you there's a real one there, when in reality it's just a balloon, or an inflatable, we should say. But here again, I guess the balloons are back in the story, just in a much different way. So this company has deployed or is able to produce about 35 of these per month. They haven't said how many they've already sent to UKR, but we're presumably they're there. And the other thing to think about is every time there's one of these out there, if it attracts munitions, then it is taking that cost from Vlad. It is an expensive hit from a distance. So if they're wasting their munitions on inflatables, that's a decent tactic from UKR's point of view.
I so want one of these with Christmas lights on my front lawn. That is pretty cool. They actually, and I don't know if you talked about it because I stepped away, but about how these have technology that make them, they look. But what's so funny is this is so
signatures.
Yeah, it's so low tech though. Look at this. This is literally what comes with a bouncy house. It's an air blower, right? You would think that they would have some technology that would be able to detect the stupid air blower down in the lower left-hand corner, or the sound signature or something of it, or I don't know. That's literally a blower for a bouncy house. So it's probably a market for these, right? By the way, if it's something like this, I don't know how much the technology in it to make it sound or look or to ping or whatever. But I mean, this is probably $300 or $400 or less. This is bouncy house technology. I could see this at a birthday party. Well, a really messed up North Korean birthday party, but you know what I mean. Getting better. And then Russia has deployed 350,000 troops against UKR army preparing for an offensive. It says that he also said that UKR is now preparing forces for an offensive, but the timing of the military action is a secret. So big events, they say that Russia's up to, well, now they're planning on an offensive. Dex, what do you think that this is going to be like they're going to try to take Crimea back or something? Or now are they going into Russia? Russia's been setting up a lot of defensive stuff in their country. Do you think that's because they expect UKR and now they're just going real gutsy and now they're going to start invading Russia?
The Crimea is the point of contention if they're going to do an offensive. That's where because they want to get that territory back. Obviously they need to reclaim what they lost on the eastern front. And they're spending a lot of time there as well. But this is the one area that I think they're most concerned about. Vlad's most concerned about is whether or not they're going to come in and try to reclaim Crimea. So, but to the story, it's yet a different person's view or intel about the numbers. We've heard about these numbers. 350,000, 500,000. The numbers are significant, and we've even heard one story tell us that 80% or 90% of the entire army was over there, so was deployed. So these numbers, are significant numbers. I don't know if we can actually verify any of them, other than we just report what the different folks tell us. Whether they've got their intel. A lot of times it's coming from UKR's side. I think this is probably a story coming from UKR side, given who it's coming from. But we'll hear inflated numbers from the other side as well. So
somebody said you said whatever robot Dex. You did go roboto there a couple minutes ago, but I fixed it. It's J62. What is going on? We have David Ward. We have hello, nice screen name. You're in a constant state of greeting. That's awesome. It says we will also be called up in a twinkling of an eye, just like Jesus and Elijah. My suggestion is baptism in Jesus' name. That works for a lot of things. Many U.S. troops. Let's see here. Suzanne Ewan Harpa. You are here. L-O and L. I missed it. Yeah. I don't think LOL constitutes a Beethoven. All right. Let's go back to the news. Putin says that Russia will deploy Satan II. This is the thing that I think it's like. I don't get scared by this, but I do know like the underpinning of like now all of a sudden they've dropped out of all of these agreements. They've dropped out of the treaties. And as far as the Satan II goes, it is one of the most terrifying weapons ever made. It can deliver 15 or 16 warheads. It can knock out 3 or 4 states. Like I said before, this is like if you've ever done the simulator of different size explosions in that like really chintzy website that you can basically, you can put it anywhere in the world and you can choose. What is that place? What is that thing called, Dex? That nuke simulator? It basically, I think
that's what it's called.
If you go up to the Satan II, you can put it anywhere on the map of the U.S. and it will take out like 3 or 4 states. The reason why is it's not just one nuke. It goes out and then it splits before it does, and it sends multiple nukes at the same time. It's a scary thing. But I guess we're also trained to not be scared when they start testing these things, doing these things, because we've gone through this with North Korea. We've gone through this with all these other nuke tests and things. And normally it does scare the crap out of people. Definitely with NK, and the media covers it nonstop. Dex, what do you think about the whole testing the SARMAT? Can't they just test like some normal nukes?
And for those that want to play with it, it's nuclearsecrecy.com/nuke map. It's called the nuke map, or you can just search for nuke simulator. You'll see that tool that everybody likes to play with. This is this is a much bigger deal in the sense from a distance and a long range. So these are the long range. So unlike the ship that came in to the Atlantic and made a right-hand turn and went over to our coast and then took off back down to South Africa for the drills, that one only can go like 600 miles. So it doesn't have long distance, the Zircons. But it is hypersonic. But this one is the one that can go very far. It's got a lot of range on it, and it can carry a very heavy payload.
And as I believe Blake pointed out, this isn't North Korea. This is Russia. But I do think, what I predict is they're going to start testing, or there will be quite a few tests all of a sudden. We're probably going to see the news of earthquakes, and they're going to say seismologists say that they might have tested this here, and it's going to grasp people, and people are really going to get involved. The only reason I point this out is because it also just keep complacent. What we're trying to let you guys know is that you shouldn't be on the roller coaster. You shouldn't be super excited and all of a sudden selling your car for prep food when it's really crazy, but you also shouldn't be complacent and on the bathtub curve of it and be like, oh, nothing's happening. You should have a steady, constant thing, staying prepared, staying vigilant, staying aware of what's going on, but also do not let yourself act out of emotion and out of fear. And that's a hard thing. People, there's this whole thing in this community where everything is fear-mongering. People are coming to the prepping community because they're probably learning about all of this, but then they call it fear-mongering. People have to go to the prepper community to find out this stuff. This is news from a prepper standpoint. So I personally believe that people should be prepared. I believe that it was my purpose here there was really just unbelievable crazy things that happened to lead me to be here to speak in front of any of you. And I'm very blessed to be here with all of you. But I think it was meant to be to prepare people for what is coming. And I think that most people are starting to come around right now. But as far as nukes, I think it's more being afraid of how much change is going to happen to our rights, to our civil liberties, to everything that's about to happen. It's going to be a change in how we live, not how we die. So that's just my personal opinion. But who knows? There could be a single nuke or a big SARMAT that goes off or something. How would that change the world? It most definitely would. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, just a reminder. when all of the technology that we're talking about here, whether it's the Satan 2 or zircons or all these other things that they're building, or even the hypersonics that we're building, or the hypersonics that Xi is building, those are just delivery vehicles. Okay, what that doesn't imply is that it's a new nuke, so to speak, or a new warhead. It's just a new delivery vehicle to get it to the destination. If we start to see seismograph readings of strange, explosions happening in different areas, and they're not announced, that's probably where you're going to see this development of newer or testing of recent or newer built nukes, which would, be outside of this treaty. Now that that treaty's been dropped, they actually can start producing again if they want. We've been in this position where we and Russia have not been producing anything else. We've been trying to actually decommission and reduce the numbers of warheads that we have. So much so that we obviously decommissioned a lot more than they did. That's why they have more than we do. And I guess we foolishly agreed to that, but that's what we agreed to. So all of this stuff is about delivery. But what you may start to see is testing of new nuke warheads if that treaty doesn't come back into play and they actually start doing testing, real testing, and that'll be game. Now that's not the same thing with NK and Xi and everyone else, because they're not part of that treaty. They're developing nations, so they're out building their own and adding more nukes all the time.
Yeah, and when people are thinking about Russia now, mainstream media has told you that Russia is totally backwards. They're they're not a threat. They're completely weak. That the U.S. would wipe them out in a second. But they don't point out every time. There's 30 or 40 countries that will probably be backing Russia as well. This is a huge force versus a huge force. It's not just U.S. versus Russia. It's U.S. and NATO versus Russia, China, possibly India, Iran, blah, blah, Cuba, all these different places. And strategically, the conflict is, I don't think it's necessarily going to be about troop size. It will be about the tech, the level of tech, and the level of preparing and the level of foresight into what may happen. These war simulations and different think tanks that have been doing this stuff for years, it will make a difference. And it's really who will be able to respond on a spontaneous moment if they have everything prepared for. If something happens, they have the correct response for it. There's always bad actions too if they make the wrong move. We see it all the time in any kind of military op where they make a complete flop. It's a big deal. And the taking people out of Afghanistan, that was a huge flop. I'm sure that's not how it was exactly planned, or I hope it wasn't. But you see mistakes all the time in these things that are probably thought out by the smartest people in the world and think tanks and simulations and all of that. And sometimes they fail. But again, just because somebody was born in Russia doesn't make them stupid, or any other country. Think about this. All of the geniuses that have changed the world, that have come up with the newest tech, that have created and invented things, those inventors have been from every country in the world. You never know who has the next Einstein or this or that. They just might have happened to be born in Russia or China or Iran. You could have, somebody who invents something that changes the entire game, and we might not even know about that person yet. So just a thought, there's always chances for, something to go wrong. That's why we all think tank and kind of drill through this stuff on our own. By the way, thank you, everybody in chat. I want to take a second before we go into more of what's going on here. I just want to take a quick second. Dex, can you get me a link for the Lisa tweet? I wanted to say thank you guys for everybody that sent prayers for Lisa's daughter, Stacy. And I also wanted to ask for more. Again, if you can pray for Lisa's daughter, Stacy, she was in a pretty pretty horrendous situation where she was in critical condition. She was on a ventilator. She's now off the ventilator, but now she has pneumonia. And they are questioning whether her kidneys and liver will recover, and if she'll be able to live a normal life after this. It might have to be the situation where if she does make it through everything, that she might have to take medication for the rest of her life. I am hoping with the right prayer and the right positive vibes and whatever you want to send, that she will be healed completely. Lisa, if you don't know her, she literally is one of the sweetest people in the planet. She never she thinks about other people's feelings. She's the kind of friend that is sad when you are sad. I guess empathetic. She is sad when you are sad. She has constantly. I mean, she feels bad if she says something that ends up affecting others, and will call you and tell you sorry that she didn't do anything wrong, but from what they did screws you over. She's just absolutely been one of our most amazing people, and she's more than just a mod. She is my friend, and I really hope that people pray for her and pray for her daughter and her quick recovery. So this is, let's see here. Let me pull this up real quick. I just wanted to highlight some of the responses on Twitter because I think you guys are really sweet and really, really amazing. So let's see here. So you can read that, but more so I just wanted to point out Pure Blood sending prayers their way. Joe Park praying. I know firsthand that miracles happen when people pray. I do too. Luke, thank you. Prayers N Home H, thank you. I appreciate you. I know Lisa does. And Carol Fisher, Cynthia Strothhoff, Matza. Is that Matza? Let's see here. And again, if you feel like going and following any of these people, go ahead. Space River News, Jacko, Country Frosted, thank you. Pegasus, Sydney Ayers, Brenda Strahl, Kelly Phillips, thank you. Trika, CK Freddie T, Prophet Stephanie Farley, Memory Trigger, Custom Painting. Hey, thank you. I met him in Ocean Shores one time. Good guy. Dearest Lord, let's see here. CJ, Gina, Gare, San Spibby, Sarita Halfley, all of these people. And it was just not, there was not a negative comment here. It was just really a lot of beautiful people saying a lot of really amazing things. So it's really amazing how people came out in numbers, like really insane amount of people prayer. So just remember, pray for Stacy, and let's see how it goes. I feel like if enough positive prayers go her way, that she will come out of this. So thank you. And I really appreciate you guys. And if you knew Lisa personally, you would understand why we would ask. So thank you guys, and much appreciated. And Lisa already goes through so much on her own, and she's just yeah. Like I said, if her daughter was even 1% of what Lisa's like, which I guarantee she's a lot like her mom, then she deserves a full recovery. Let's see here. And then, let's see here. Russian forces wipe out 6 UKR ammo depots, or at least that's what is according to their top guys, right? It says that out of Moscow, Russian forces destroyed 6 UKR ammunition depots in the Donetsk People's Republic over the past day during the special military operation in UKR. Defense Ministry spokesman Lieutenant General Igor Konashukov reported on Thursday. 6 ammunition depots of the UKR Army were destroyed in areas near the settlements of Razdolnoy, Boykotor, and Eagledar, Razliv, and a bunch of other names I cannot say, and the railway station at Ugolsboroshnaya, which, by the way, they hit a railway station. It's still crazy to me that they put our president on a supposed train. In fact, Dex, do you want to talk about this kind of side theory here? And I'll pull up this, I'll pull up the Rail Force One. I think I have it here. Rail Force One. Do I have it? Dex, do you? And then hold on. Let me make sure. I hope I didn't have you on.
Do you need me to get that for you?
I think so. Yes. I can't access it right now.
Where do you want it?
Screener, where the last one was. So, and by the way, you know more of what the Fugel fam said than I do, and I thought that this was a really interesting theory, and it came from a Fugel fam. So we could talk about that here in a second. But let's see here.
Yeah, so and I don't want to name names because I think the message came in with the real name, so we'll just call them MB for now. But you know who you are because you sent us the email, and thank you so much. But the theory, and this was a really interesting theory coming from a Fugel fan member, and I kind of want to riff on it a little bit, was that normally a president would fly in anywhere on one of our jets, one of Air Force One, as they would call it. No matter which one it is, it's called that. And that would be a military vehicle, and it would land, and it would have the military would be in charge of that vehicle, in addition to Secret Service and everybody else that's around the protective detail. But the point being is that's a military vehicle landing in UKR, and the thought was, hey, he took a private or a VIP train from the border of Poland to Kiev, and he did that on a UKR train. So would that give them the ability to actually move something in to Kiev under the protection of the president, but give plausible deniability to the U.S. because it was being transported on UKR equipment? In other words, if they wanted to sneak something, whether they're sneaking something from the West or just sneaking something from the West side of their country, all the way into Kiev without being detected, or with assurances that it won't be targeted, could they have put that on that train? That train had 8 cars in it, I believe. There was, a lot of people on it too, but there's probably plenty of room for other things, what those other things could be. Could be anything from a suitcase, tactical, to, something else, who knows? But the point being is they asked for permission from Vlad. They said, hey, don't target. Our president's going to take this train ride and you're going to know about it. And he's like, no problem. We won't target you. We're going to keep doing our thing, but we're not going to target that trip. So did that open the door for them to move something that they wanted to move, whether they're moving it across the border and into Kiev under the cover
of being a train?
of the train, right? And if they were to do that with a U.S. military flight, then we couldn't have plausible deniability because we would know everything on that plane. We would know what's on it. So it could be stacks of cash. It could be, who knows what it is. Maybe it's nothing. But that was a really fascinating idea about why he took a train, why he didn't necessarily just fly Air Force One in and land, because they could have done that. There's no reason that he's been to UKR many times before. There's no reason they can't just fly in.
And apparently at one point he took a commercial plane. Like, that's stupid. And by the way, can I ask, does anybody know if the actual train was painted like this? Like, is this after he did the ride, or was it before that he took the ride that they painted it as Rail Force One? Because I also think that would be absolutely incredibly stupid to advertise on the side of it, like, hey, here's where the United States president is. I'm sure, even if, I guess, and then why even paint this stupid bird thing? And by the way, if there's anybody into symbolism, look at this. Like, there's like a creature there. It almost like it's Native American. What do you guys inspired of this like bird? It almost reminds me of like a thunderbird or something. Is it supposed to be an eagle or a Native American version of eagle with the big red eye? That's just kind of creepy. I thought it was an interesting theory, and the Fugel fan member that sent that in, it's definitely a thought exercise there. I thought it was pretty. It was a well put together thought, at least, and it's something that people should be asking. I hope that reporters end up asking that. But as far as the depots, if by the way, going back to the depots that are getting knocked out, that's the stuff that we're probably sending, and our taxpayer dollars are going in, and it's just boom, wiped out like that, if it's true. And then let's see here. Before we get out to the 5 that perished in a very extremely odd thing, I do want to remind you, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and look at marfooglenews.com/prep. You can get a 3-month supply of food and a really, really cool kit of all sorts of cool gadgets and different prep items that actually comes as a free gift. $200 worth of different items are in there. And that is when you go through marfooglenews.com/prep. So not only will you get a 3-month supply of freeze-dried food that can last 25 years, sealed in Mylar bags, and then also double sealed into buckets, you will also get a bunch of free stuff along with it right now. And that is when you use our link, marfooglenews.com/prep. It will definitely set you up better than before if you end up going with that. 3 months of food obviously can be split up, so that's a month and a half for 2 people, or a month for 3 people, or a few weeks for 4 people, or so on and so on. Get a couple of those, you could be set for at least a lot better than most people. Average person has 3 days of food in their fridge. That's pretty scary when you think about if the power goes out for even a week, you're pretty screwed. The DHS thinks you should have at least 6 months of food. That's an actual warning they put out to Americans, saying that every American should have 6 months to a year worth of extra food, which is kind of freaky. They've always been against prepping, but they put out a very specific warning in 2018 due to the risk of an EMP. So go to marfooglenews.com/prep. You can also get all sorts of other things. You go to the tab at the top, and you can find things like the Alexa Pure Pro, and, of course, the Alexa Air Purifier, and all sorts of other cool things. marfooglenews.com. All right, and then the 5 that perished in a plane crash headed to aid in environmental cleanup. So this is kind of sensitive here because, obviously, it was very odd. So they are saying that these gentlemen weren't directly involved with this thing, but they worked for the same company that was in charge of cleaning up the whole train coming off the tracks situation. And they would also be possibly the same guys who would be there and would be able to say, hey, there was some pretty messed up stuff there. Well, they ended up perishing in a plane crash headed to aid in environmental cleanup of the really, really bad Oakwood Village Boom Boom event. Dex, do you want to talk about this? And this is kind of nuts.
So this plane went down at the near the Bill and Clinton National Airport, over there in Little Rock. But it was also en route to Ohio. They claim, and the story goes, they were headed there to deal with the aftermath of a different event that had happened, not talking specifically about the one with the train. So a lot of people are questioning, and we're just reporting the actual news as it came, and they're telling us that that's not the case. It wasn't going there. It was going for a different reason, but a lot of people are questioning why. Now, the company that sent these people actually did have some people early on involved at the train site doing similar work. So there's a lot of people questioning, what happened, with this, because it's too much to be a coincidence for a lot of people's minds when they try to put all this together, and everybody's always grasping and looking, for different angles and different rabbit holes, if you want to call them that. So
basically, these people
take that one for what it's worth.
These people could have been some of the first to respond and grab samples and things from the other event, and people are wondering if these guys, this specific crew of people, might have known something that they don't exactly want known. But that's just the side crazy. You're crazy, right? You're crazy. You've been crazy for years, even though everything keeps coming true. Dang it. Proud. And zombie skin-rotting trank drug takes over streets of America as expert warns there's no medication to reverse overdose. A skin-rotting drug commonly known as trank or trank dope has hit the streets of Philadelphia and is making its way to California, the U.S. Sun can exclusively reveal. Public health officials are disturbed by the spread and the horrific wounds it causes on users. Trank is the common term for xanthazine, an animal tranquilizer drug that is now most commonly cut with or fentanyl. Xanthazine is approved by the FDA as an animal trank used by vets, but it is not safe for humans. It says trank users have found raw wounds erupting on their skin at the site of which has rotted the surrounding skin and caused infections, sometimes leading to amputation. Sounds like just normal things that do that, but apparently this is even worse. What's crazy is if you go in some of the really torn up places, there are people that look like zombies. No joke. Obviously, people have talked about previous ones like the Flocka thing that went around that was everybody was talking about. But apparently, this is going to make it very easy to see who's taken that certain stuff. It has pictures, of course, that don't have anything to do with this. But I don't even think we could show you pictures of some of the stuff on Twitter. They've shown some of the results of this, and it's pretty gross. So it seems like people at a massive rate are just getting destroyed in every way from every direction in the United States. But who knows? It could be a global thing here soon. I know that the color blue, those things have absolutely destroyed entire towns. It's definitely destroyed chunks of metropolitan areas. It is so much worse than the stuff that came before that. And it is absolutely horrible. Highly recommend if you are having any issues with addiction or recovery, make sure to go check out The Lifeboat. Tommy over there at The Lifeboat is running a channel that essentially talks about all of these issues. Really, the best part about it, though, is the community. Everybody who's going through the same thing. I absolutely know it's a good thing for the community to have somewhere to go where you can talk to people about that. So the channel Lifeboat is in the Foogle fam, and they are really, really great. Again, and also you may find Wages over there occasionally. Wages World is also a great channel as well. Mark from the Wages World channel ends up helping out there as well. So make sure to go check out both channels, and you can find them both at marfooglenews.com/friends. Along with that, you can find all of our wonderful mods, including if you do want to say something personal or a personal prayer to Lisa R. Hall, please make sure to go over and check out her channel over there as well. She is the one who has Stacy, her daughter, is really, really not doing well. So if you want to, send a personal message to her, go over to her channel. And then also check out all of the other mods. These are all folks that try to keep the chat neutral and positive and push people up. And they are also a very, very awesome source for knowledge. These folks have been with us, and they have followed the news just as closely as we have. So again, they're all very smart people. Their opinions matter. Trinity, Ilea, Wages World, RJL Harris, Rip Curl Readiness, Lisa Hall, Jammer1, Gem, CJ Blaze, Chance Paladin, and of course Bones. Go check them all out. All right, and then of course down below is all of the friends, including Lifeboat, Donut Factory, Willing Witness, Joseph Newhouse, Jacob Israel, Justin True, and all of the rest of the crew. All right, Dex, let's talk. There was one more thing here. And I do want to read about the official kind of setup on this. It said that Poland sets up an anti-tank barrier along border with Belarus and Russia. As the world marks the one-year anniversary since Russia's all-out invasion of UKR, Warsaw has reinforced its border. And mind you, President B just went there. JB just went there, and now all of a sudden they're setting up a defense. Dex, did you think about that? Like, Biden just went there by this whole secretive trip and stuff, and now Poland is literally setting up defenses for tanks. Are we headed into a Fantastic Freddy or what? By the way, tomorrow is the anniversary, right? Is it the 24th or is technically today? I believe it's the.
Oh, it's technically now. It's the 24th here, so I'm sure it's later there. So yeah, this is a not a good sign. It's definitely a sign that they think tanks are going to be coming across their border. Otherwise, they wouldn't put those out there. This is, and it's not just on the street there. It's not just a pretty picture in a couple locations. It sounds like they're creating these barriers all up and down their border, specifically with Belarus and with Russia. So that's where they're expecting, I guess, an incursion at some point. We've heard Poland talk about how they felt like they were going to be next. We've heard from Vlad's side where pundits have said, yes, we should stop, hiding the fact that we want to go to Poland next. So we've got it from both sides that they're, sort of on the short list, so to speak, not counting Moldova. Moldova isn't, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's not NATO. So, they could go there and nobody's going to, respond. And if we didn't respond to UKR in the same, like we would if they went to Poland. They went to Poland, then it's all in. Everybody's in. It's over. It's full scale. So, yeah, this is not a good sign, and it's definitely not a pretty picture when you see those things. Pretty ominous when you're looking, down the street and you're looking at the border, and that's what's there.
And the fact that we're all expecting some big event today or tomorrow or around this period we've all been waiting for on the day or the technical anniversary in their time zone, Poland is setting up anti-tank measures along their borders. And they say they're setting up even more. They're putting up checkpoints. They're doing all sorts of... Why, right? Well, remember Belarus said a week ago, they said, we will only get involved in this thing if we are attacked. So be ready. There's a possible Fantastic Freddy on the horizon. And, yeah. So we've been saying it the whole time. Maybe after... And by the way, I don't think we'll be able to do this same thing, this same kind of show after this all goes down. But what sucks is by the time it does happen, it's not like this isn't vindication that we want. When World War III ends up coming out, multiple countries have declared war on each other and all of this stuff happens, then yeah, maybe people go, oh wow, they were actually right this whole time. And by they, I mean myself, you guys, the whole community, our peers. Oh, it wasn't fear-mongering. Vindication means that probably we won't be here, and I'm not saying perished. I'm saying the internet's going to be screwed up. I bet you they're going to clamp down on every piece of information about the conflict. I bet you it's going to be like straight up, controlled narrative 100%. So sadly, I think that that's what's next. And just remember, when all of this is down, you're going, oh man, they were right. But the good part about that is, like, next time something happens and we absolutely know, and as a group we're like, hey, this is going to happen, maybe people will believe us. The people that believed us before CV hit, they were set up while everybody else, was freaking out because all of the shelves were empty. Foogle fam were hanging out at their house and eating off their stocks. Same thing should apply here. If you have, again, the ability to prep slowly. I've been telling people to prep slowly for a year. If you would have just gotten a can of food every single time you went, just one can extra, and then maybe a gallon of water, $1, $2 gallon of water, and then stored that away, I mean, you'd have a ton by now. So even if you don't go get yourself, freeze-dried food, you can do it yourself. You can look up how to dehydrate, which is much more inexpensive. You can do all sorts of things to prepare for a possible bad event, whether that bad event be WW3 or a storm or a crazy polar vortex event or your pipes freezing and your whole house floods, whatever it may be. You can prepare for it, and you can do it in little bites and make it, reasonable. So, all right, and then these are what's being set up. So pay attention, people. This is what was predicted time and time again, and now it's still happening, and it's just going to happen a little step at a day, and and all of a sudden there's just going to be war, and people are going to be like, wait, I thought it was going to be like declared or something. Like a Twitter user pointed out, World War III won't be declared, It's just going to start happening, and it's already happening in most of our minds, but it really starts getting hot. That's when people really go, oh, wow, we're in World War III. Mind you, in most of World War II, a lot of people didn't really realize that a lot of countries didn't realize they were really a big part of it. I just watched Norvik last night, which was about the Norwegians that were in Norvik alongside Germans, and they had like a neutrality thing. They were staying neutral, and that neutrality agreement was actually like in the middle of the day or at some point during the day. They're still right next to each other. That neutrality agreement dropped, and these guys were in this iron ore town together, German soldiers and Norwegian soldiers, just chilling next to each other, and then all of a sudden the neutrality agreement dropped, and now they're enemies, and they're in the same town. Pretty trippy thing, but a lot of things like that happened. And it made me also think about all of the neutral countries that are now joining in. Everybody is joining in on this. Everybody knows this is going to be bigger than it is. So I hope people are listening. Dex, let's see here. We've got, is there anything we missed? Because I know we added a lot of stuff right before. I don't think so, though. Did we miss anything?
I think we covered it all.
Okay. Now that's just the last 24 hours, people. So make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com. Dex, well, let's go over the overflow. You don't want to miss this either. He's going to highlight some of the craziest stuff going on outside the show.
Exactly. There's more, right? There's always more, and more is on our website, but I'll give you the highlights real quick. So head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or on YouTube, and on Rumble, open up that description, click on the show notes link. It'll take you right here. When you scroll down past all the news we just covered with you, so that's our bibliography, you're going to find this yellow bar. It says overflow. This is where the rest of the story is. So our president has nominated the former MasterCard CEO, Ajay Abanga, to head up the World Bank. We'll see how that nomination goes. There's an interesting article about the plan to grow food on the moon with astro farmers and robots. That's a pretty detailed article. If you want to go take a look at that. Should algorithms or AI control the nuclear launch codes? That's a crazy question. Of course, thankfully, the U.S. says no. There's a whole discussion about the advancement of AI and what they should and shouldn't be doing with it in the military, and that's covered as well. So we've talked about Spain and the additional tanks. We talked about that over on our other channel, Marfoogle News, in the short. So if you guys remember, head over there and share that video so others can learn about the Foogle fam. Definitely some additional updates on what's happening around the UKR event. There was a fascinating photo allegedly from a U2 pilot that took a selfie with their plane shadowed on the balloon. So, and that's just like perfect timing, I guess. Some people are speculating that it's not legit, but they're publishing it out as it is legit. So take it for what you want, but it's pretty cool if you want to go take a look at what that looked like from their perspective in the U2. And the U2 spy plane is one of the planes that could go high enough to reach that elevation. If you want to know who Elon thinks is actually pushing the conflict in UKR the most, and it's not Vlad, it's someone else. So you can find out that. Just go click on that article and read. There was a huge UKR flag painted on the road outside the Russian embassy in London. And there's some other updates. Now we got the whole political spectrum covered here. So those of you that will keep following along with the saga of T-Man and what's been going on with those events as well as others that are running. That's all here. There's some updates as well around some other things that have happened in with a T group and women accused of what they were doing. That's kind of really creepy. Hey, on the back to the space topic though, 6 massive galaxies were found, and they're basically creating a problem for how scientists have defined the universe. And the nutshell, and I'll give you the sort of the spoiler, but it's pretty fascinating if you want to go read it. They're finding stuff that's actually older than it should be if it was in the position at where the universe was expanding at the time. So that's sort of calling into question their definition of the universe. I know a lot of people have different varying opinions on that, and this kind of information might actually help some of those other opinions that are out there. Updates with the bird cough cough. Updates with some of these new advanced cars that are coming out. And SpaceX is about to launch their biggest ever Starship. They're getting closer and closer. All of that and so much more. I think I tried to give you as much of it as I could right here. It's all on marfooglenews.com. Go click on the thumbnail for the show or open up the show notes link. It's in the description. You can get the rest of the story.
Wow. So and again, if this one, the discovery of the 6 galaxies, I guess, would that affect the Big Bang Theory? Is that the one that it would really start affecting?
Well, it affects the timing. I mean, for example, if they said the universe was 1/3 its size at this date and time, but over here to the right, where the universe didn't exist, is a galaxy that's older than that. How does it get there? Right? That's sort of like throwing off their time, their models that they have. It doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't work, but it's also questioning a lot of things. And we've seen a lot of these things happen in the science field, especially in the theoretical side, because of changes or new information that they get in space. Like, I remember one too long ago, dark matter was thrown out there where it was causing a lot of their calculations to have to change, or they have to think about what is the definition of space and how it actually works. So a lot of the stuff that we think we know may change over time, and it will change over time.
Or that there's air or oxygen on the moon. That came out a couple years ago. That it's actually in our atmosphere, or at least part of it, like the geocorona or something. Anyways, thank you, everybody. Love you. Everybody over in the chat, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Gee whiz. God bless you as well. Joe, Sign Digger, who go dia z, who go dizia, who go dizia. Dope Heathen, Shoshana Rose. I have some dehydrated water to tell you. That's a good one. Air, huh? Isn't that air? I think that would be air. Yeah. By the way, they have air in a can now. Oxygen in a can. I saw the funniest review on it. It was like just basically saying this is the biggest ripoff. It was like $20 for a can of pure oxygen. I could see the one use, like if you're in a house fire or something, and you're able to like breathe that while holding your breath, but I think it's only a few puffs. So yeah, I guess if you're in like a, if you get put out to space for, I don't know. I don't know what the true use of that is. Anyways, thank you, and thank you, mods. Make sure to say thank you to everybody over on DLive. Michelle K, Define Fadeaway, thank you. Michelle K, thank you. And then Vicky K, thank you for your nightly stop by. Yobi, Kimbria, Beer Juice, thank you. Aaron Terp, Renegade Petey, thank you so much for your support over there. Scooby-Doo Do-Right, and of course, Big Hair Tsunami, thank you for gifting a badge to Michelle K. Thank you, everybody over on the DLive crew that keeps that alive, including our wonderful mods, Chance, Jammer, and April. Love you guys. Dex, thank you so much for your service tonight. Appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It's time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Thank you, Shirley Douglas. Lisa Douglas, sorry about that. Lisa, I'm going to have to shout you out on tomorrow's show as well. So whether you can watch or not, I'm going to be shouting you out during the main show because that was very, very kind of you. Thank you for... I think that if that was an accident, please let me know because you didn't even write anything. Lisa Douglas, thank you for the support for independent media. Appreciate you. And then Carol White, thank you, thank you, thank you. David Wad, thank you. Shirley Baker, thank you. Red Pilled, thank you. Again, you didn't have to do that. Thank you so much. Carol McLean, Tobias, Stephen McMahon, Carol McLean, and the rest of the Foogle fam.
I've no bad yo. I've got the eye captain and I'm bring it on. I said low on them. Bring it down. I got in the boat and the places. I said got a wicked world, a real world. No one is perfect, but you are as close as it gets. No one is perfect, but you are as close as it gets. close as it gets. They'll find their love there. They lost their all night. They'll bum 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 bum.